What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? And welcome back to another read along of a conspiracy book called Behold the Pale Horse. And what this book is about, for those that don't know, never heard of it, or are just tuning in, what if everything you knew about the government, education, and UFOs was wrong? In this book, William Cooper will give you some insight to the government's true agenda of a new world order, the truth of UFOs, and many other things that have been hidden from the public's eye. Now, the reason why I'm reading this and the reason why I'm sharing it with you, those who choose to listen to my reading, is just information. That's all it is. So when I share what I'm reading, for those that are interested, it will be out there for you to listen to. So on the last reading, and where I left off was where William Cooper spoke about devolunteering from the Navy after he witnessed a UFO while out in the ocean. After reporting it to his higher ups, he was made to sign legal paperwork not to talk about this or of what he saw, or else he will be fined a couple $1,000s and in prison. He ended up getting transferred to this gasoline tanker ship by the name of Tom Big B, with a crazy captain as he describes them in a misfit crew. They were confronted by enemy fire in Vietnam riverbank, where his captain ordered them to anchor in the middle of the river channel where it was narrow and they were right there for all to see, a big target for the enemies to fire. By the grace of God, they didn't get hit whatsoever. They actually made it through the night, were able to land safely. Afterwards, his captain was released from position. William went to school for naval intelligence and security, where he was sent to Camp Carter. Got trained, got interviewed, ended up owning his own ship and being able to recruit his own crew. So that was last time's reading. I actually tried to do one yesterday, but for whatever reason, my mic wasn't recording. Good thing, bad thing, depending on how you ask. But I'm going to go ahead and keep reading where I left off. Reporters sat around, drinking or eating. All around flowed conversation and laughter. We ordered a huge meal, signed Lieutenant Dewey, name to the check. Then went out to the boat. I don't know whose name the other guys signed, but none of us had any money. I don't even know if Lieutenant Dewey ever got the bill. I do know that it was one of the best damn meals that we ever had in that country. The next 2 days were spent repairing the boat, cleaning the weapons, and checking everything. Then we went to the club, got stone drunk, and slept for damn near a whole other day. Bob Barron volunteered for Vet. I begged him to stay with us. Maybe we could all go up later together. He couldn't wait. He had to have action. We promised each other that if one of us bought the farm, the other would drink a bottle of scotch in memory, then break the bottle on the rock. Don't ask me what that was all about. Men who think they might die at any given moment do stupid things, and I was no different than most. About 3 weeks later, we learned that Bob's boat had gone on to Lima, patrolled on the Tejon River one night, and had never returned. No radio transmissions were ever heard, and for a while, no bodies were found. Then one by one, they popped to the surface along the bank. It was a long time before we ever found the boat. When we did, it was twisted up like a pretzel. I say we because after I drank the bottle of scotch and broke it on the rocks, I forced the issue and was transferred to the Dong Han River support group at Kua Vet. It was now a personal war. They had killed a part of me. Bob had been my friend. His name is on the Vietnam Memorial. My boat engaged the enemy more times than any other boat that ever patrolled that river. We kept the enemy off river, and I never lost another man. I was awarded the Novel Achievement Medal with Combat 5, the Novel Commendation Medal with Combat 5, and the Combat Action Ribbon. A whole organization was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the Novel Unit Citation, and each of us accumulated various other minor awards, ribbons, and medals. One thing I didn't like about Vietnam was that it was very difficult to maintain into cohesion and moral when you had proven and trusted men leaving all the time at staggering intervals and green. Unproven men arriving to take their places. I noticed that I felt like I was deserting my crew when I was rotated home. I tried to extend my tour of duty, but they had already decided to phase out our forces and turn the war over to the Vietnamese. If I had extended a month earlier, I was told I could have stayed. My attitude at that point was smoldering, screw it. The whole time I was in Vietnam, and especially on the DMZ, I had noticed that there was a lot of UFO activity. We had individual 24-hour crypto code sheets that we used to encode messages. But because of the danger that one of them could be captured at any time, we used special code words for sensitive information. UFOs, I was told, were definitely sensitive information. I learned exactly how sensitive when all the people of an entire village disappeared after UFOs were seen hovering above their huts. Imagine that. I don't know how far deep people dig into things like that, pay that much of close attention to encounters of UFOs or anything like that. I personally, truthfully, I like to hear stories about them. I like to look at documents about them when they come up on TV, stuff like that. But to really invest my time about UFOs, so on and so forth, about their theory, where they're coming from, who they are, I have no clue about that. But to him, to be able to state that an entire village disappeared after UFOs were seen hovering above their huts, that's pretty insane. And that's something I want to actually look into. Not saying that he's lying, but that is pretty amazing for something like that to happen. And we all have heard a lot about UFOs here, UFOs there. So there's been sightings. The Pentagon came out and said, yes, there is sightings. There's a lot of reports of UFOs. Now they're coming out and acknowledging that after so many years of denying it. But that is crazy for a whole village to disappear. I learned that both sides had fire on the UFOs and they had blasted back with a mysterious blue light. Rumors floated around that UFOs had kidnapped and mutilated two Army soldiers, then dropped them in the bush. No one knew how much of this was true, but the fact that the rumors persisted made me tend to think there was at least some truth in them. I found out later that most of those rumors were true. I eventually found myself back in Hawaii. This time it was shore duty at the headquarters of Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet at Makalapa, a hill above Pearl Harbor. Pretty much butcher that, but you understand what I'm saying. And what he's saying here as well is that the rumors about UFOs, kidnapping a whole village or disappearing a whole village, two soldiers being mutilated, kidnapped, and being dropped off in the bush, things is actually true. In this book, as I keep reading along, and I do remember a couple of things, he does talk about things such as UFOs. Talks about the corruption in government, what their agenda is. It gets pretty interesting. I just can't remember it. And that's why I'm rereading it, because I like this book and I would like to share with the rest of you, to those who would like to listen. I carried a secret security clearance in the Air Force, which was required for submarines. When I checked into the Fleet Administration Unit, I was asked to fill out papers for another clearance. I did as I was asked. I remember that one of the questions asked if I had ever belonged to any fraternal organizations. I looked down the list, circled the Demole Society, and answered in the affirmative. I was assigned to the Operational Status Report Office under Lieutenant Mercado while I awaited the results of FBI background check for the upgraded clearance. About 6 months later, I was called into the office of the Chief of Staff for Naval Intelligence. I was asked to read the regulations covering the personnel reliability program governing those personnel who had access to nuclear weapons, information on nuclear weapons, launch codes, and various other things having to do with nuclear weapons or anything that came under HQ CR44. I was asked to read and then sign a security oath, which I did. I was then told by Captain Caldwell that my security clearance had been upgraded to top secret, need to know basis. He told me to report to the officer in charge of the CINCPA intelligence briefing team the following morning at 400 hours. I did. What I learned during the time I spent with the briefing team is what led me on my 18-year research that has culminated in the writing of this book. I was later given another upgrade clearance in the crypto category and served as the designated SPECAT operator when I was on the watch in the command center. So I'm just gonna leave it here. It's gonna be short, hopefully short and sweet. But we're leaving off where he's talking about his clearance and how he's been cleared for straight to need to know basis, top secret things. Ended up going to an intelligence briefing team. Ended up learning things that compelled him to write this book by doing his own research before writing this book. So it's very interesting to know what exactly this book holds. What exactly is he talking about when it comes down to the corruption of the government's agenda? Why would the government not wanting to tell the public about the UFOs? And there's a lot of things that despite this book might give you some insight in. Like I said, I haven't read this book in many, many years, but I want to reread it. I want to see if there's anything that he was saying in this book that might just kind of correlate to what's happening in today's day. See you guys on the next one.